Ant-Man and the Wasp is directed by Peyton Reed, and it is the 20th movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
It's the 20th.
gotta shoot on them jazz hands. This movie stars Paul Rudd, Evangeline Lilly, Michael Douglas, and Lawrence Fishburne.
I wonder if Lawrence Fishburne is he the only actor that's been in both the DC and Marvel universe? Oh, the guy that was in Batman vs Superman, and he was in Winter Soldier. He played the same character in both.
Going into it was kind of like a pleasant surprise, in all honesty. The movie itself wasn't great by any means, but overall it was still really enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, I was sort of on the same level as Ant-Man. I haven't really decided which one I like more, but in the same aspect as the first one, I feel like this one was just like a really fun movie that didn't really have any like overly bad things to it. I mean, there were quite a bit of bad stuff that I will talk about later, but overall there wasn't anything very insulting to the audience, like very bad things.
Yeah. And what one really good thing about this movie was the comedy was actually unexpectedly good at most of the time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there was one,
which is a plus for Marvel movies.
Yeah. There was one amazingly hilarious scene in this movie.
It takes place in a school.
Yeah, I'm not going to go into detail, but that was like one of my favorite parts of this entire movie. But the I'm not going to say that all the jokes hit. And that is kind of a negative at the same time, is that some of the jokes don't hit. Like a pretty decent amount of them aren't like funny, but the ones that are really hit.
Right.
The ones that are funny really hit.
Yeah, I will say some of the best jokes in the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies were in this. A lot of the best ones were. Yeah. But like you said, there were quite a bit that didn't land.
But they weren't like cringy jokes. Yeah. Like I actually didn't mind them being in there. And then Michael Pena, I didn't like his character in the first one that much. He kept doing this weird little thing in the first one where like it was like this. He was like talking really fast, and he was like do the words.
Right, and they were showing like montages of people saying what he's saying.
Yeah, I'm happy in this movie they don't do that a lot. And some people like that, so if you like that, it's fine. But I didn't personally like that in the first one. But this one, I think they did it like one time, so that's really cool.
Which I'm surprised, because I think actually a lot of people actually did like that from the first one. So I'm surprised that they didn't do it.
Oh yeah,
as much as they did in the first one.
And Paul Rudd, this movie itself is enjoyable, but Paul Rudd does add a lot to it because he's just has a likable personality.
Yeah, and it's really shocking because like whenever I think of Paul Rudd, I don't really think superhero. And even when he was cast, whenever he was like rumored to be Ant-Man, before the first one came out, it was sort of hard to picture him as a superhero, but I think this movie and the first one actually really played off of that. Like, he's sort of like not the average typical superhero. Yeah. He feels like an actual guy who's like thrust into a superhero role. One of the things I like the most about this movie is they really played off of the whole shrinking and unshrinking. That whole aspect of the movie made a lot of the fight scenes really unique. Oh yeah, I think they did a lot. Which the first one did it pretty good too, but I felt like they really stepped it up in this movie, incorporating all that into the fight scenes and everything. Yeah, the fight scenes were fantastic, and I also loved. I don't know any of these characters' names, but Evangeline Lilly's character, the Wasp. Well, yeah, the title of the movie. Well, I mean that's her character. I don't know her character. Hope. Yeah. Hope. Evangeline Lilly's character, I actually loved her character. Yeah. I keep saying that. The Wasp. Right. The Wasp, that's her name. Hope Wasp. Hope Wasp. I really loved her character. Her last name isn't Wasp. In case you didn't know that. Whatever it is. Okay, I liked her. Okay? I liked her character. She was cool. Okay? I felt like she was one of the best parts about the movie. Okay? Maybe more than Paul Rudd's character. Ooh, you stepping it up there. I don't know. I just like. I did like her character. She was pretty cool. A lot of her fight scenes were actually probably some of my favorite, even more than like Ant-Man's and a lot of the other characters. Because especially since she can fly, that helped a lot. But just like the way they coordinated it is pretty cool. I just realized I said Paul Rudd's character as well. I actually said his name.
I think it was Paul Rudd's character, Evangeline Lil's character.
Is that how you gotta say
Michael
from now
Douglas's
for all movies?
Yeah. Scott Lang, the guy who Paul Rudd plays in this movie, which is Ant-Man and the Wasp.
He doesn't play Ant-Man and the Wasp.
What is this, an Eddie Murphy movie? Okay. Scott Lang's character. Well, not Scott Lang's character, but
Oh my God.
Scott Lang. I liked his character a lot in this movie. And
would you like it from the most about it?
with Scott Lang, they really kind of built a lot more on his relationship with his daughter.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Which the first one kind of did that. In the first one, you kind of show that he cared about his daughter and he loved his daughter. This one kind of moves towards him, actually their relationship between the two. And you actually begin to really feel their relationship.
Yeah, for sure. Especially since, for most of the beginning, he's on house arrest, so it shows him interacting with his daughter a lot.
Yeah,
and also it does bring a pretty interesting aspect because I don't think any of the other Marvel characters have any kids, do they?
No, not really. No.
I think Scott Lang is the only superhero in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that has a kid. So it's nice to have that difference and that uniqueness.
Yeah, it really brings the character kind of down to earth and kind of makes him a little more relatable. You know?
Oh, wait, hold on. Hawkeye has some kids, but who cares about them?
Why in the world would you even bring up Hawkeye's kids? Hawkeye has kids. You really get to see their relationship in Age of Ultron
for 2 seconds.
Now, even though the CGI in this movie I didn't think was phenomenal or anything by any means, most of the movie, but again, like the first Ant-Man, they do a de-aging CGI, and they also what they did with Civil War with Tony Stark. Mm-hmm. They do they use CGI to do de-aging, make them look younger, and they did that with Michael Douglas and Lawrence Fishburne. That CGI for that is ridiculous, out of this world good.
Now the villain for this movie, which the villain is one of the most important parts for most movies. So the villain for this movie is Ava. What's her? Oh, her super villain name is Ghost, and I feel like her backstory was pretty cool. Her superpowers visually were pretty cool, and just pretty much overall she's pretty cool. But one of the biggest problems I have for this movie was that they didn't have her in the movie enough, because they laid the pieces for her character to be pretty interesting. They just didn't really capitalize on it, and I feel like they really should have, because it would have made her character even more compelling, more cool.
And one of the biggest issues that kind of added onto that was they had Walter Goggins playing this movie, and he played this guy who was kind of just following them around throughout the entire movie. And they kind of almost seemed like they were wanting to make him the villain, almost. Because he was in this movie quite a bit, and it felt like it took away so much from what the character could have actually been, the other villain. Ghost, sorry. What Ghost could have actually been. It felt like it completely took away any type of interesting substance that could have been used for her character.
Yeah.
Because this movie doesn't really feel like it has a villain. It is, and you know who the villain is, but it doesn't feel like it has one. It just feels like obstacles that they have to go around in order to get things done. Because nobody's ever accented on this movie. Walter Goggins' character in this movie felt like the villain from Logan.
Oh, yeah.
The guy who, the young guy who was
with the robot arm.
Yeah, I felt like his voice sounded a lot like him.
Yeah,
that kind of country accent.
Yeah, and how he was chasing the heroes around and everything,
and how he'd have that that kind of talking to where it wasn't he wasn't trying to say mean things. It almost like he was trying to be a nice guy, but evil undertones to his voice. It sounded like exactly he was trying to be that character.
Yeah, it definitely didn't land as well as in Logan, but. And also another thing, I don't even know the character's name, but Walter Goggins' character.
Yeah.
Almost all of the scenes, well, not all, but most of the scenes that he was in, they really drug. Most of the movie was pretty fun, it was pretty fast paced, but then whenever his character came onto the screen and had a scene, it just really made the movie really slowed down, and it got sort of boring.
This movie is exposition heavy. I'll say the very first exposition scene, which like a scene where like the police officer is talking to Scott Lang's daughter, that exposition scene was interesting. It felt a tiny bit forced, but not really. Like, it was an interesting way to kind of put exposition in. But there was another exposition scene in there that kind of explained Ghosts. Oh my goodness, I keep forgetting her name. They kind of explained Ghost's backstory. And even though the backstory was interesting for her, that one felt really forced whenever they were going over that exposition.
I honestly think that they could have, because she's like explaining her backstory, and they're showing like the flashbacks, and while she's like talking through it, like narrating it pretty much. And I feel like they could have just taken the scenes where they're showing her backstory and put it at the beginning of the movie, which I know at the beginning of the movie they're trying to keep her character sort of mysterious on who she was for a while. But I feel like it would have done the character more justice if they would have just put her backstory at the beginning of the movie with no narration or anything, because that was sort of cheesy, and just have it play out.
One of my last complaints is the fact that the whole movie kind of just felt weirdly paced. And it mainly had to do with the fact that the whole movie takes place in about 3 days. Oh, no, I think it's more like 2 days. But
I think it's
like 2 or 3 days. And everything that happens in the movie felt like it was just rushed. And that also, I feel like, is a big part of why the character of Ghost, why her character wasn't nearly as fleshed out as she should have been. I felt like a little more fleshing out would have done well. And it just, the whole movie, because of how the weird pacing was, it just kind of made the movie feel awkward throughout the entire thing. So for just a little bit, we're going to have a spoiler section. So if you haven't seen the movie and you don't want anything spoiled for you, go ahead and click right here to see our grades. So later on in this movie, you find out that Lawrence Fishburne is kind of in on it with with Ghost. He's helping her out. And one really interesting thing is I felt like that thing is that Lawrence Fishburne's a really good actor, and so he made the relationship, he made me feel something for it. He made me see something, but at the same time, I wasn't able to feel, I felt like I should have been feeling more for the relationship. I felt like I should have been feeling more of like a father and daughter kind of relationship. And at one point, whenever I first noticed that, when I first saw them interacting, I was like, okay, I think later on I'm into feeling a father-daughter thing, but I never actually felt it.
Yeah, and it would have been even cooler if they would have done that better, because it would have been like a nice parallel with Helm and Ghost, and then with Hank Pym and Evangeline Lilly's character. It would have been a nice parallel between the villain and the heroes, which they weren't necessarily villains because they weren't out there doing like actual like villainous stuff. They're just trying to save Ava's life, but at the same time they're still doing sort of evil stuff.
Yeah. And another big thing is I don't know how much I can say it is a spoiler, but because of Marvel it kind of isn't a spoiler, is that Michelle Pfeiffer is in this movie, and she lives. She plays the Wasp's
mom.
The Wasp's mom. She plays her mom, and she lives. They find her, and she gets out of the quantum realm. But the big issue with this is, like, a while ago, I remember seeing a poster of Ant-Man. I remember going through the posters, and I saw Michelle Pfeiffer, like an older Michelle Pfeiffer. And it's like, if they would have had like a younger Michelle Pfeiffer, it would have been kind of weird, because the younger version of herself doesn't have a big part of the movie. But it would have been a huge spoiler. But they show her as an older woman. And so I didn't realize that she was even going to be in this movie. I didn't realize. So by the time, whenever I saw it, I was like, oh, cool, Michelle Pfeiffer's going to be in this movie.
Right.
By the time the movie starts, you see Michelle Pfeiffer as her younger self. You realize this is her mom. And from the very beginning, I realized that Michelle Pfeiffer's going to make it out because they released this poster.
Right. And not only did they release it, the theater that we saw the movie at, I saw when we were walking out in the hallway, they had a poster with all the characters, and Michelle Pfeiffer is pretty prominent on the poster, and it's pretty prominent that she's like the older Michelle Pfeiffer, so it's obvious that she survives by the end of it. And also at the end, whenever Hank Pym finally reaches Michelle Pfeiffer's character in the quantum realm, I don't know if the scene was rushed per se, or I don't know what it was, but the scene wasn't the emotional impact wasn't there like it should have been, because like the whole time they're trying to find her, and then, like through all these years they were trying to find her, and I didn't really feel that whenever he finally found her.
Yeah, like I felt something. I know what you're saying, but you didn't feel the years that they went without her.
Exactly.
So overall, this movie was actually a lot of fun. It was definitely a lot better than I thought it was going to be. And it had its actual really good moments. But like overall, the movie does really have these kind of messy moments that really, it wasn't like a lot of things they did like bad. It was just a lot of things that they should have accented on a lot more.
Yeah, I felt like it was really like harmless movie that didn't really have any like glaring issues with it. I did feel like the narrative wasn't as tight as the first movie. It did have a better villain than the first movie.
Yeah.
But I feel like at times they lost focus of what they were trying to do, because they're having so many villains, so many obstacles that they're trying to throw in there. It just sort of got really muddy.
We're going to say that Ant-Man and the Wasp is 75% awesome. So guys, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also comment below and tell us what you thought about Ant-Man and the Wasp. Maybe tell us whether or not you like the first one or the second one more. And give us kind of like where you would rank this one on all the MCU movies to date.
And don't forget to follow us on social media at 2 Awesome Men.
And as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see us later.